suddenly I became the voice for that because people caught wind of me doing this bike ride with this disease and the challenges that come with it. And I didn't plan for any of that. I was just doing what I needed to do for me, and then that led to becoming a patient advocate and speaking on stages and so forth, and writing a memoir as well. So you never know.
Welcome back to the Take a Chance on You podcast, hosted by me, Alexandra Forsyth. Today, I am so excited to be passing the mic to Risa August, who is an award-winning author, screenwriter, TEDx speaker, who turned a brain tumor diagnosis into a cross-country bike journey and the unraveling of a former life into a story of radical reinvention. Risa, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Alexandra. Thank you so much for having me today.
That's okay. Excited to have you here. And Risa is joining us from the US. So do you want to give the listeners a little bit of an insight into where you are, who you are, and then we'll go from there?
Sure. I don't know why this is one of the hardest questions for me to answer, but I'm based in Colorado in the USA, and I love the mountains, and it's sunny 300 days out of the year here, and so that's why I love being here. But when I say I'm based here, it's because I travel around the country speaking, mainly at medical conferences, and hopefully inspiring and educating those out there within the medical industry. And aside from that, I have a 17-year-old Jack Russell, and he's still going strong. And I love riding my bike and being outdoors. So.
I love that. And talk to me a little bit about your background, because for the listeners, this will be the first time they're hearing your story. So take us right back to the beginning. We will talk about your TEDx, and we'll also talk about Ironman, and we'll talk about some of your activities that you get involved in. But to begin with, take us right back.
Yeah. So I grew up in Ohio, which is on the other side of the country, and I was always a very rigid person in my life. I grew up in a very abusive household. So if I reflect back, that's probably kind of how I became such a rigid adult. I was well behaved, flew under the radar, just, kind of be quiet, do what I'm told, and survive. And so I took that into my adult years. And so, like I said, I lived this very rigid lifestyle and high achieving, just always striving for acknowledgement and perfectionism, and again, overachieving. And so it wasn't until 2011 where I started noticing changes in my body. And at this time, I was an Ironman athlete, very in tune with my body, very stringent about what I put into my body, how I treated my body. And I was almost a fanatic about it. And again, that's probably has to do with some sort of control issues, but nonetheless, it's who I was at the time. But I started noticing significant changes, like significant weight gain in a short period of time, and despite eating very strictly and working out constantly, and just changes in bone structure and hair growth, and things that just weren't making sense. And so I started going to doctors, which I never did, because I didn't even take painkillers. I was very much a purist, and but I started going to doctors, and they were telling me I was fine, and my blood work was fine, and that I'm probably overtraining and overdoing it. And so there was about 7 years of that. But I continued to put on weight, continued to notice changes in my body. I wasn't ever feeling good. I started struggling with energy and severe, severe headaches. that never went away. And so I finally went back to the doctor and asked for an MRI, brain MRI, and I just had these headaches that weren't going away, and I couldn't was barely sleeping each night, maybe 2 hours. And my doctor kept telling me the same thing. "You're fine. Your blood work's fine. I'm not worried." And so I asked for an MRI again, and she said, "No, I don't think you need one, and they're expensive." Um, and then there was something in me that day. This was kind of the whole shift in my whole life. This moment I found my voice for the first time and I said, "Order me the MRI. I will be so happy if it comes back normal, but I'll have peace of mind." And it didn't come back normal. 1 week later, I had an email from her with one sentence saying, "You have an enlarged pituitary. Go see an endocrinologist." And I didn't know it yet, but my life would never be the same.
I really just want to say, for the listeners out there, Risa, I think that's one of the first times telling that story on a public platform such as this podcast. So a really big thank you for that, because it takes a lot of courage. And Take a Chance on You, that's what this podcast is all about. I want the guests to feel seen and heard. I want them to come on and share their stories, because it's very eye-opening to listen to your journey so far. Are there any strategies straight away that you think you would offer out to the listeners? The example you gave of the MRI being quite persistent over the years, you needed that scan, even though you were told that possibly nothing was coming back and that you're healthy and you're okay, you felt that there was something niggling underneath the surface?
Yeah, well, it was a big lesson for me to trust myself because we put all our trust in doctors and oh, they know everything. They'll know um but I wasn't trusting myself. And so now um so now that's just a big lesson I learned from it. And and it's not always perfect, but I would say that trust yourself. And even if it's just for that peace of mind, even if it's just, you know what, I don't know, something kind of feels weird, but you know what, I just want the peace of mind. And I hope to God it comes back normal or negative or whatever the case. But do it for you. Do it for you.
It's really interesting as well, the concept of perfectionism. Immediately when you said that word, I thought to myself, I'm quite a perfectionist, but something I've noticed over the course of doing the podcast, I quite like that it's ratty and chaotic. So do you think there's any match-up between perfectionism and control to a certain extent with, well, the life-changing news that you got from the MRI? Do you think you had to kind of let go of your own expectations in a way and how you see the world?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Thank you for asking that.
Mm.
Absolutely. I can clearly see that I had to, like, I really had this need for control in my life. And like I say old Rissa, new Rissa, because this really was a turning point for me. I had to fully let go of control, which I didn't do easily or right away. Um, and uh, Looking back now, it's the biggest gift ever. Also, I had to also grieve that part of myself. Grieve grieve that old Rissa that, and having to relinquish that control and all of that. I mean, it was such a incredible process to go through. And I still have my days where, I'm holding on so tight and I have to remind myself, let's loosen that grip a little bit. Let's let go a little bit and trust.
What I really love about what you've just said there, grief, and I've actually spoken about this before on the podcast, we don't talk about grief and sadness, which comes with our identity and how naturally we have seasons of life and we move through to the next phase. And grieving the person that we were, it doesn't necessarily mean that that person's gone. It just means that you've evolved as who you are and then you move on to the next phase. So I don't think we talk about that enough, because it's actually, as you say, grief and sadness, it can be quite profound, and it can, it's an interesting concept.
Yes. And something else you talk about quite a bit on your shows is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And there's so much discomfort.
It isn't easy. It's not easy. It's It's a difficult one because like I said, in certain areas of my career, I like to have control, and even just kind of day to day, my to-do list, my schedule, what I'm up to, projects that I'm working on, people that I'm talking to. I like to understand meetings I'm going to, who's going to be there, etc. Just have a bit of a plan in place. It makes me feel quite safe. When it comes to the podcast, it's all up in the air. There's a lot of movement currently happening now, which I'm going to start talking about a little bit more openly on the podcast. But I don't really have that much control, to be honest. And it's the same with the guests when they come on and they tell their stories. For example, you might say things on the podcast, which then I have to navigate and facilitate questions and conversations surrounding that. But it's exciting. So going back to the uncomfortableness, it is exciting to not really know what's coming next and maybe not have that plan in place, because then you get to embrace what's coming. Do you have any examples of that for yourself?
Oh gosh. Yes. I mean, there's a lot of that even through coaching or speaking, because I so much believe in being authentic and human and allowing the awkwardness to come through. Uh, Being okay with, for example, I struggle now with, from brain surgery and radiation treatment, I struggle with kind of finding the words or having a smooth flow in my answers. For example, right now, and so there's a lot of uhs and and pauses, and it's uncomfortable for me because I was always that perfectionist, and I always prided myself in almost being flawless. And, and there's some arrogance there, that I had to, get used to being like, okay, I'm not perfect anymore. I make so many mistakes. My brain doesn't always connect to my body smoothly and efficiently. And it's very uncomfortable for me. But I've also found humor to be such a vital part of my process, is laughing at myself, laughing when I stumble on words or can't or unable to grab the word or say it flawlessly. And another thing you talk about is just like just embracing it. So, yeah.
I think just embracing life's challenges, I've said this earlier on to a friend, sometimes the day doesn't go very well, but if I can find one or two things out of all of that and smile and have gratitude, that's the best I can do, probably all I can do. But if I can just hold on to that and have hope that tomorrow you get up and you do it all again. But that's the reality. That's life, unfortunately. And fortunately, you have to embrace the messiness as well as the good times.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you just said that. And that's a lot of what my message is about, is I had to stop focusing on what I can't do. I had to start focusing on what I can do.
Talk to me a little bit more about the journey.
Yeah. So, following brain surgery, I started noticing, like, if my brain was telling me to turn right, my body would go left, or it would start tripping over itself. Or if I typed an email, I'm really good at typing and really fast and efficient, and I would type something and look at the screen, and it would just be a garbled mess of letters and numbers. So my brain thought I was just typing as normal, as normally I would, but my hands weren't connecting to the keyboard the way they used to, um, and then my short-term memory is just insane, off the charts, and people joke about it all the time. But I could listen to a podcast episode and a few minutes later forget what I just listened to. I used to run my own wedding and event planning company. I was really good at it. I was just a very organized, detailed person. And so again, it's a talk about discomfort. It's a very uncomfortable place to not be able to remember simple things. And again, I have to find the humor in it, and laughter, and oh my gosh, the irony of it all. It's just, you know, this turning point in my life really forced me to reflect on my life. And so I kind of pulled out this bucket list of mine of all the things I'd been wanting to do all my life. And they were things I was going to do someday, but someday never arrives, right? Like it just, when was I going to do them? The time was now. And so riding my bike across country was one of those things. And I found this route from Canada to Mexico along the US's west coast, the Pacific coast. And I remember thinking, that's the one. That's the one I'm going to do. And I didn't even think about it. That same day, I just signed up. I'm doing this. And I had 14 months to figure out how I could possibly ride for 41 days straight and do that. And again, it took me getting off that couch. But this started off as this was going to be my journey, my solo journey, a healing journey for me. There was this doctor who told me that he would advise me not to do it. And that just was the rocket fuel I needed. I was like, well, challenge accepted. And that's when I also realized how I move forward in my life is my choice. Like I get to decide that. That's my decision. And so I went on to do that ride and learned so many things, proved to myself I'm way more capable than I might have ever believed. And that became a big platform for me moving forward and a metaphor. The road became a metaphor for life. It's rarely ever smooth and straight. It's curvy and
Absolutely. I love the phrase, the road less traveled. And it reminds me of that when you took the bike journey, Canada through to Mexico. Also, when you said rocket fuel, it reminds me, I love when people say no to me or I get rejected from an offer. I don't perceive it as failure. I perceive it as I need to go and find my yes. And for you, that was the bike ride. That's the journey that you took. You were persistent and said, I'm going to do it anyway. And I think that's powerful and it takes so much courage. And for anybody listening, possibly going through a similar situation where they're not sure whether to go left or right, there's an overwhelming number of people telling them no. Be persistent, go for it if you trust your judgment and you believe in yourself. And it goes back to what Risa said at the beginning, trust is key, doing the inner work, having that belief.
absolutely. And you never know what's going to come from it. I accidentally became the voice for a lot of people living with the same tumor or disease that I have, which is called acromegaly, which is life-changing and very destructive. And suddenly I became the voice for that because people caught wind of me doing this bike ride with this disease and the challenges that come with it. And I didn't plan for any of that. I was just doing what I needed to do for me. And then that led to becoming a patient advocate and speaking on stages and so forth, and writing a memoir as well. So you never know what's going to come from it.
I know. Talk to me a little bit more about some of the symptoms for anybody listening. Are there any statistics behind this as well in terms of how common is it, I would say?
Yes. So they call it a rare disease. So it's believed these pituitary tumors, they're right at the base of your brain. They're very difficult to diagnose. The pituitary controls everything in our bodies, and including all the other glands. And when you think about it, it's pretty incredible. And so when things start going haywire in your body, you have symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, weight gain or weight loss, weight gain, changes in just your skin. I had braces 3 times because my teeth were moving, hair growth changes. Like there's all kinds of things, our hormones control. And so because of that, it's really difficult to diagnose. I kept looking at thyroid. I kept thinking there was something wrong with my thyroid. And so, but it's believed that 1 in 5 people are walking around with these tumors, but they're, like I said, doctors don't, they're not looking at the pituitary gland. And that's kind of what led me to the work I'm doing today is like, okay, this has to change. It took 7 years for me to get diagnosed, and I started to see that my story wasn't unique. This was happening all over the world. And so, now people reach out to me from all over the world, and I'm helping them their voice.
Off the back of the bike ride, Canada through to Mexico, two questions. Did you meet anybody along the way? Do you have any stories to share? And then we'll come on to the TEDx.
So I met a lot of people along the way. It was a semi-supported tour. So there were 9 other riders. Essentially, we hire a van. We all share it, and it transports our gear from location to location each day. I thought that was going to be easier, but the thing with that is if you want your gear, you have to follow the van. And so we'd camp out each night and eat our meals together. But essentially during the day when you're riding, it's up to you to figure out how to get to the next place. And sometimes you're riding with people and sometimes you're not. And so, but the people within that group, there were numerous characters that I talk about. Several of them were characters that I talk about in my book. But along the way, I remember just meeting people at rest stops or in towns. And I remember meeting this one guy who, he was in like a camper van. And I was kind of on this ride doing a little bit of advocacy work. And one of my cyclists, the people I was riding with said, tell him your story. That's, you're doing this to raise awareness. Tell him your story. And I felt self-conscious about that, but I did. And he went on to tell me how he had this life-threatening brain aneurysm that only 10% people survive, and he survived. And so he gave up everything. He sold everything in his life, gave up his career. I mean, I have the goosebumps thinking about it. Bought this camper van, and he's just out living his life, experiencing all the things that he said he would do someday. And how much it changed his life. And so that, again, that just was a reminder, one, my story isn't unique, but two, the power of adversity and how it can really wake us up and get us to look at our lives differently and ask ourselves, what do I want? What do I want in this one precious, beautiful life?
You have to go through the hard times in order to get to the good. So it's not a shame because your life is unfolding the way it is for a reason. So your experiences, one community that you're meeting on the bike ride, so being surrounded by so many people, sharing your story, other people sharing their stories of adversity, getting through the obstacles and the challenges in life to get them to the next phase, deciding to pack up and do the things that they've always wanted to do. Now they, in their heads, have a reason to do that right now. So that's so what I try and reflect on my mission as much as I possibly can. My roadmap, why am I here? Why am I doing this podcast, for example? I try and get grounded with the reasons why and my purpose. And for me, it's always acts of service. It's impact. I want other people to feel that they are a success at every stage of life, that they shouldn't wait. They should speak up right now. So it's really fantastic to hear that from you. And then also come on to the funny stories as well.
Yeah. So, it is, and you don't have to go through a big thing. Like, it doesn't have to be, it could be simply, like you said, just asking yourself that question of, well, what is it I want to accomplish? Or what am I not doing or waiting for someday? Or, it might be, you know what? I want to visit my family. I keep putting it off, and they're in another state or another place. And I mean, it could be whatever it is that you want it to be. And so again, everyone else's journey and process is different, but I think it starts with asking those questions. Um, and um, and as far as funny stories go, I remember the first 2 weeks on this bike ride were rainy and cold. It was miserable, and we're camping out every night. I'm somewhere in the state of Washington, in a very rural part of it. I I'm just covered in, have my rain gear on, just soaking wet. I'm just My head's down. I'm just watching the road, and I'm why did I decide to do this? Like, what am I getting out of this? And I was kind of in this complainy, like this sucks kind of place. And then I decided, well, wait a minute. How many people get this opportunity to just get up and ride every day, rain or shine? Like, my body's moving. I went through a lot, and here I am able to get back on my bike again and do this crazy fun adventure. I need to really savor it and look around and just soak it in. And at that moment, I'm not joking here. I looked up, and again, rural Washington state. I drive past this house, and at the end of this driveway is this large recliner chair and this teddy bear that was bigger than me. I'm not, it was a stuffed bear, and it was larger than a human. And it's sitting in this human sized recliner at the end of this driveway, just waving to the people passing by. And I just started laughing. And here it is pouring rain, and this teddy bear sitting in this recliner is so happy, sitting in the rain, waving to people. And I just that moment was a pivotal moment in the ride of, like, there is laughter and joy everywhere, even in the rainy, cold, hard days. And had I not looked up, I would have missed it. I would have missed it. So, yeah.
What I'm hearing is a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness to say, well, actually, life's not too bad. I'm on this bike ride. I'm in a rural part of Washington. I'm surrounded by a community. And then I see this teddy bear. And it's a story that you attach to that. And it goes back to what we mentioned again at the beginning, having gratitude, picking out one or two things for you, the bike ride, realizing that you're doing something pretty amazing. And not everybody would make that decision to go on that bike ride after having had the diagnosis and then going through treatment, etc. So you're stacking up your evidence.
Yes, I love how you framed that. Yes. I've proof.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Proof of it. And it goes back to what I say, if you can pick one or two things out of a bad day, stack up the evidence, find that proof, as you say, it's not as bad as we think it is. Come rain or shine, you're on that bike ride, you're living life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Life's messy. It is.
It is.
It's messy. It's chaotic. We have good intentions. We put that plan in place, but not everything unfolds the way we want. But actually, something that I've done in the past is an alternative vision board. So you can have that vision, that day in the life. You see the destination and where you want to go. But actually, what if it doesn't work out? And off the back of that, what if it works out in a way that you could never have imagined and it's the best possible outcome? So there's actually 3 parts to it. You have that vision, but then you have that alternative vision. It might not work out. Maybe we can put certain mitigations in place to help us in the event that it goes sideways. But then off the back of that, what if it all goes to rubbish and then it turns out even better? You just never know. So it's being open and being optimistic to life.
Yes, absolutely. And when this is your quote from one of your episodes, but rejection is redirection. Like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And so if you look at life that way, there is no failure. It's redirection. It's pivoting. And so I just love that. If it doesn't work out, it's going to work out a different way.
Absolutely. One of my guests during season 1, she mentioned rejection therapy and how she'd gone through so much rejection, she just got used to it. And again, it goes back to what I said at the beginning. Redirection go and find your yes. It's really hard in the moment, and I've gone through experiences in life where it just feels all encompassing. It's tunnel vision. You just can't see past what's happening right now. Take that step back. For me, boundaries is huge. So saying no to certain things, or I try and get out in nature as much as possible, go for a walk. I plot out, if I'm in London, it would normally be on a Sunday, to go walking for 2 to 3 hours. Sometimes I find now taking meetings on the go, or I used to listen to music a lot or a podcast when I go walking, but now I don't listen to anything. I actually really enjoy the silence, and I'm just taking everything in, my surroundings, the noises, people talking. I love that.
Yeah. Wow. Gosh, yeah, I love exploring an area, even if I've done that walk several times before. There's
Yeah.
always something new to see or explore. And I love what you said about now you love the silence. I I hear you on that.
I
I
really
don't listen to
do.
music. Yeah, exactly. There's just something definitely I don't know. I can't find the word for it, but therapeutic
I,
about it.
I, if we're talking about recommendations for anybody listening, that is one. If you can take a meeting on the go, if you can walk somewhere instead of traveling by car or bus or tube, wherever you're based, take it, because the more you do it, you get used to it, and you actually find, I mean, me personally, I look forward to it. And if I don't have it, I miss it. So doing more of that.
Mhm.
But going on to your TEDx, and then we have your book as well, which I think feeds into your TEDx, obviously feeds into your journey that you're on.
Yes. So when I became started doing this advocacy work, I started speaking on stages, which I used to be horrified. I'm actually quite shy, and like I like to say, awkward, but I like that part of me. But I started speaking on behalf of patients, and also speaking to medical professionals, and trying to encourage more coactive doctor-patient relationships. Doctors, you need to listen to your patients, and patients, we need to ask better questions, or more questions. And I just started noticing people were listening. People were listening to me. I have no idea why, but they were. And someone said, you should do a TEDx talk. I was like, no, people who are really smart and have really incredible ideas, that's for them. But, going back to that day on the couch when I was so focused on what I can't do, I really asked myself this question. I switched it around and I asked myself, well, what can I do? And that changed everything. And I turned the word can into a mantra, using each letter from the word can. Capable, able, now. What am I capable and able to do now in this moment? I had to simplify it. It sounds like a simple idea, but that's what I had to do. I had to simplify my life during that time. And so that question, what can I do? And the word can really became this profound idea and process for me. And that's what my TEDx talk turned into. People were like, it's a great idea. Like that's such a great idea. And in my mind, I was like, but it's so simple. Um, you know, and they're like, well, it's a complex world. Maybe simplifying it, or simplifying hard moments or complicated moments, are what people need. And so that became my TEDx idea, and I landed a TEDx talk, and that didn't come easy either, but it was one step at a time, everything we go through and process, it's one step at a time.
Absolutely. And I am going to go against what Reese has just mentioned in terms of only smart people do TEDx's, because that is diminishing your self-worth, and I don't
Absolutely.
agree. Everybody who comes on the podcast, I always say to them, and it's the mantra of the podcast is, don't wait until society deems you to be a success. You are a success now. So the TEDx came at the time when, even though you might not have felt ready, you were ready.
Mhm.
I have a similar experience with the TEDx in terms of I was meant to be volunteering. I always relay that story, and I ended up being asked if I wanted to do it. So I wanted to do the TEDx, but the year after I initially did it in 2024, I wanted it to be 2025, but it didn't turn out that way. But actually it was the best year to do it, because if I look at last year, I just can't see how that would have happened. But talk to me a little bit more about the process in terms of TEDx, because everybody's experiences are a lot different. And then off the back of that, what can we offer out to listeners? I always say, if you're not ready or you don't feel ready, volunteer your time, because then you can get around other speakers. It's a fantastic event, and there are some brilliant people in the room.
Yes. Well, I had to apply. I applied to 96 actual stages, and I didn't wait.
Wow, you applied to 96
Hmm.
TEDx's?
Hmm.
Okay.
But I didn't wait, because I didn't wait for the perfect idea, I or I didn't have it all squared away quite yet. And so that's one from your book. Like, I didn't wait. Like, I knew I wanted to do this TEDx talk. I had like a rough idea of what I was doing, but it wasn't solidified and perfect yet. And so I just started applying. I started applying to every TEDx that I would be willing to travel to. And um and then I got clear on, I really solidified my idea. But it's not just solidifying your idea. It's solidifying the idea you believe in wholeheartedly. I I was so passionate about, I called it the can method, my can idea. I really believed in it. And so when I was about ready, about 95 applications in, I was about ready to give up. I was, that's kind of when I got to that stage of, my idea sucks. Maybe it's just not good enough. I'm not smart enough, or I don't have some brilliant science, life-changing thing. And a good friend said to me, "This is your idea. You believe in it. It is good enough. It is better than good enough." And so I really remember letting go at that point, because I was going to scrap it all and start over. And I remember letting go. And I did. I let go of the process. And I think 1 month later, I was on vacation enjoying myself, in Key West. And I got an email. TEDx congratulates you. And, it's TEDx Thomas Jefferson University in Pennsylvania. And they welcomed me to the lineup. And it was really in that moment of letting go, like truly embracing but letting go. So, so it's kind of magical.
But it also goes back to trusting yourself. And as your friend said, you believe in the idea. One thing I love about TEDx, you don't have to, the story that you're telling should be unique to you, but also it should be authentic, comes to mind. So whatever story you decide to talk about when you stand on that red dot, it should really come from the heart. I know mine was, yours was, and it should really relay something to the audience that they can take away with them.
Yeah.
In terms of possibly strategy, I'm always about recommendations. So if you can go into it with those intentions, trust yourself, support yourself 100%, believe in yourself, anything's possible. Honestly, when you have belief and you trust, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many people say no. It doesn't matter the rejections, or you never see anything as a failure. You just see it as redirection, and it can completely shift your mindset. That's what it's supposed to do.
Exactly. Absolutely. And it changed mine. Like, I didn't have to have an idea that would change the world. Maybe it would. Most likely it wouldn't, but that didn't even matter. That was beside the point. Like, maybe my idea would change one life.
If you go into it with that, you're changing. I always say you're changing lives. I say whoever listens to the podcast, we're changing lives. We're offering something to them that can help, even if it's just our voices.
And I love it. You've just inspired me. I love it.
I think it's amazing to listen to the journey. You really took it upon yourself to not stay where you were in terms of mindset. You had that self-awareness, that bike ride from Canada to Mexico. I would love to see pictures. If you can please send some through, even if it's a video, anything that you have, so I can share that with the listeners as well, because visualization is huge for me. I'd love to actually see and then put it into my mind as well. And the TEDx, extraordinary, and then the book now, and leading on to 2026. What does that look like for you? And rounding up with anything else you want to give to the listeners.
I came to love my story. I was in knots about publishing this book, and I've come to love my story. And I went on to write the screenplay for it. And the screenplay started also winning awards, and it's set to go into production in 2027. Meanwhile, my new thing is like film festivals and screenwriting contests, and that's just been a blast because it's this whole new thing. That I never ever thought I never thought I'd write a screenplay. And I don't think I ever want to do it again because it's really challenging, but I would never trade the experience. And I'd never thought that the road would lead here. And so now I'm like meeting with producers and things like that. And it's so much fun. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll finish my second book. And I have this dream of riding, from Switzerland to the Netherlands, on the Rhine River, along the Rhine River. And, so, I don't have the one thing right now, but what I do have is openness, open to possibilities, and that feels exciting. And meanwhile, I'm just being Risa.
I love that. There's two things. You don't know what that looks like until you're there, meeting producers, thinking about festivals, it being in production, writing your second book. It was meant to happen the way it was. Sometimes we just don't know how we've gotten to where we have, but it goes back to trusting yourself, having that belief, being open. Anything's possible. I think that's the key takeaway. Anything is possible, but I also love what you said at the end. I'm still Risa. I think about that a lot when I'm doing the podcast, other things that I'm up to. I'm still Alex. It's never going to change. If you can always remember the intentions behind whatever you do, and that authenticity, for me, acts of service is huge. If I can hold on to that and why I'm doing this and the impact and the purpose that I want to make, it keeps you grounded. When life is going from 0 to 100 very, very fast, it can be hard to keep to that and own it. I'm sure any listeners will agree. It's just having that sense of self. Anything that the listeners can take into a new day.
Yes. If you're struggling or having a moment where you don't know which way to turn or what decision to make, just ask yourself, what can I do? And even if that means, well, I can get myself dressed in this moment, or I can ask myself the question of what decision feels more in alignment with myself, or, just ask yourself, what can I do? You're more powerful than you may believe. And I think I'll leave it at that.
I love that. Ask yourself, what can you do? Small steps. We've said that throughout this episode. Small steps lead to big moments. If you can only get up and get dressed, make your bed, go to work without doing anything else, you've achieved so much. And I think that's the big thing when life's moving so fast. If I think about social media in comparison to other people, it's rife and it can lead to doom scrolling and just not feeling good about yourself. Just remember that small moments lead to big actions. And I want to say a big thank you for Risa coming on, telling her story, and I will see you all very, very soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Alex.